Hello, my book and wax friends. I'm Amber. If you're new, welcome. Welcome back if you're returning. I post about all things books and home fragrance. And today's video is my wrap up of the 25 books in 2025 goals that I had. So I did create a yearly TBR last year, 25 books. If you watched my yearly TBR for this year, I kept it at 25 books. I'm not going over that. I'm not going to continue to increase the book amount depending on the year because 25 feels like a good limit. Because, spoiler, I did not finish every single book on my yearly TBR this past year, but I did pretty well. So I wanted to go over all of them with you. I'm not going to go into big detail about each book. I might do a little synopsis, but I will give you a star rating for the ones that I did actually read from my yearly TBR. So let's jump into it. And I will go from like the ones that I didn't get to all the way to what my 5-star is, or 5 stars. There's more than one that ended up being 5 stars. So I will do it that way for you guys. I felt that was a little bit of a cleaner way to do it. Okay, so the first 4 books were ones that I didn't even get to. The first one was Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I checked it out a couple times from the library and even put it on one of my monthly TBRs, and I just lost interest. I just wasn't interested in it anymore, even though I had put it on my TBR last year. I was just like, nah, it just doesn't interest me. And so I won't have that. Well, like I said, if you watched my TBR for this year, you know, I didn't put it on the 26 and the 25 and 26. Okay, the next one is Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. Didn't get to that one. That one I'm still interested in possibly reading in the future, but I did not put it on my yearly TBR this year. The next one I never got around to was The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery by Gabrielle Zevin. Another one I just didn't get to. I didn't even check it out from the library. I just never got to it. Eventually, maybe again, I might get around to reading that one, but it's not a priority. And then the last one from the ones I didn't even read is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence, which is the first in a trilogy. I am still interested in that one. And that one of the ones that I just talked about is probably the one I'm most interested in possibly one day picking up. I'm not making it a priority. Maybe sometime this year. I was planning on reading it like over the summer, never got to it. And then it just felt more like a summer read to me for some reason. And so yeah, not on this year's yearly TBR, but maybe someday. Then after that is a couple DNFs. The first one I have is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I attempted to read that, got about 5 or so chapters into it. I enjoyed her writing style. This is the first Naomi Novik that I've attempted to read. I enjoyed the writing style. The book was just a little off the wall, and I just couldn't get into it. Maybe in the future I would try it again. I just wasn't in the right headspace, I guess, for it. It's very different type of book about a school that these kids go to that have magical abilities, but the school is actually kind of trying to kill them, and all the creatures that come into the school are trying to kill them type of thing. So yeah, it's a bit different type of book. So I might try one of her other books. And then if I enjoy those, whatever ones I pick up, maybe I'll jump back to trying that one. So we'll see. Then after that, another DNF was A Man Called Uva by Frederick Bachman. And this one I started reading, I got like 3 chapters in, and I was already feeling depressed. And I was like, do I really want to read this? I know it's gonna like tear my heart out. And so I decided to put it down. It just, I don't think it's a book for me. So I decided to DNF that one. And then the next one is a soft DNF, and that is, oh, and I actually have the book for this one. It is The House Witch, and as you can see, I was starting to read it. This is by Della Mahawk, and this one, if you watched my 25 and 2026, I did move over to my yearly TBR, so I do want to read it. I was enjoying it for the little amount that I was reading it. I just ran out of time during the month that I had picked this up, and kind of was over the whole, this was kind of for the fall type of vibes, and I was just kind of over it by the time the month ended. And so I'll get to it this year, hopefully, because I do want to read it. I was enjoying it. All right, moving on. The next book is Piranesi by Susanna Clark. If you watch my most disappointing books of 2025, you already know this. This one, I only rated a 2.5 stars. I know it's a lot of people's favorites, or one of their favorites. It was such a slog to get through. Even though it was a shorter book, like 250 pages or so, it still felt like it needed like 100 pages cut from the story. It was overly descriptive, and come to find out, none of those things, the descriptions of where he lived and the statues and all that, didn't even really matter all that much. And so I enjoyed the mystery element of it for the most part, but I enjoyed, and the main character, I really did like him as a character, but it was just it was verbose, and I felt like it wasn't needed in the way that it was. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. So 2.5 stars was generous, I feel like, and I feel like the extra half star was because I enjoyed the main character, and the mystery of what was happening. All right, moving on to my 3 stars. Is The Blue Castle by L.M. Montgomery. Only 3 stars. This was also on my most disappointing books of 2025. I thought I was going to love this because L.M. Montgomery's Anne of Green Gables series is one of my all-time favorite series. And I just thought this is going to feel the same way for me, and it just wasn't. I wasn't a big fan of the main character all that much. She went through some hard things, I know, but I just didn't like her. I just didn't jive with her. And so even though it had Ellen Montgomery's beautiful prose, I only liked it, and I was expecting it to be a 5 stars. So it was sad for sure. Then after that, I did read Remarkably Bright Creatures, and that one I gave a 3.5 stars. If it didn't have the third POV in the story, I probably would have bumped it up to between a 4 and 5 star, because I did enjoy a couple of the main characters' points of view, but the third point of view in it, he drove me nuts. I did not like him at all. He had that victimhood mentality. Another one I didn't jive with. So that was Remarkably Bright Creatures. Then, next on my list that I did read was The Liar's Crown by Abigail Owen. My first Abigail Owen book I've ever read, and I enjoyed her writing. I might continue with other books. I might continue with this series. I don't think so, though. I haven't thought about it really all that much since reading it, but I did give it a 3.75 stars. So it's about a girl who is like the second princess, and she is a twin of her sister who is going to eventually be the queen, and she ends up being like a body double for her, and no one knows about her except those that raised her, obviously. And she ends up getting kidnapped, and that those people that kidnap her think that she's her sister. So it was good. It was interesting. I enjoyed it enough. Then after that, on my list, read Sipsworth by Simon Van Bowie. That one I gave a 3.75 stars to. It was about an older lady and her relationship with a little mouse that she finds. Overall, I did enjoy it. There were a couple things that I ended up not enjoying it, which is why it was only 3.75. Then after that, from my list, we're moving into the 4-star range. The first one is Howl's Moving Castle by Diane Wynne Jones. And this was a whimsical, fun time. I just felt like the relationship between Howl and Sophie just felt kind of rushed. Like it didn't work for me all that much. But I loved the storyline. I loved the little mystery aspect of it. It was whimsical. I loved Howl and I loved Sophie separately. And I loved the side characters as well. Calcifer, I really enjoyed. And I can't remember the assistant's name. I can't remember, but I liked him as well. So it was a good story. I enjoyed it for sure. Really liked it because I gave it a 4 star. After that, I finished A Beast of a Book from my list, and that is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. And that one I also rated 4 stars. That one took me a few months to get through, so I read it about for 4 months because it's an over 1,000-page book. It's very long. And I enjoyed the story, and I was kind of familiar with the story to begin with, but I'd never read the actual book, and so I wanted to put it on my TBR. Yeah, overall, I thought it was good. It was very wordy. It was another one like Piranesi where I felt like a lot of it could have been cut out, but at that time, I know authors were paid by by word or how long the book was, how many words, how many pages, and they got more money. And I feel like that's kind of the reason why conversations, they would beat around the bush to get to what they were trying to say a little too much. And so, yeah, that started to drive me crazy. So that's why it didn't reach 5-star potential for me. But overall, I did enjoy the story. So it was a 4 star. Then another 4 star was The Untold Story by Genevieve Cogman. This is the final book in her Invisible Library series, or probably her final book. She did say in an author's note that she could continue with this world and these characters in the future, but at least for this first era or whatever series, 8 books, that it was the final book. And I did enjoy it, not as much as I was hoping for with it being the final book. Parts of it felt rushed, and then other parts felt like there wasn't enough that happened. And so I loved being back with the characters, with Irene and Kai and everybody else, but overall, I really liked it, but it didn't reach that 5-star feeling for me. Then after that is another book I actually own, and that is The Geographer's Map to Romance. This is the second book in India Holton's Loves Academic series. And this one I did enjoy. I also gave this one a 4 stars. But the overall series I love. They're a fun romp. India Holton always writes really fun, humorous types of books that have adventure and love. This takes place in our world back in like the the late 1800s. But there's magic in this world, and it's two characters in this one who are both professors of like geography, but they are specifically over like magical type of phenomenon having to do with landscape and those types of things. And it's a marriage of convenience type of situation, and I really did enjoy it. This is a very big miscommunication type of book, though, and not talking. If you would just talk to each other, things would work out, and it was like for pretty much the whole book. And so that's why I couldn't rate it higher. The overall story I enjoyed, but it drove me crazy that the two main characters would not talk to each other and just express their feelings to each other and talk about what had happened and was happening. So that is that one. So of the two books that I have read, I did enjoy The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love more than that one. But I'm looking forward to the third book that does come out in like April or something like that. All right. Then I read, and of course this is not in order of me reading the books, but on my list, Dracula, I did read by Bram Stoker, and this one I rated a 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed the story. It was a journal style where you get to read journal entries from all different characters in the book, and I enjoyed being in their heads and seeing what happens in regards to Dracula through their experience. And there were some things like Van Helsing, he got a little much at times, where like in Count of Monte Cristo, let's stop beating around the bush and just get to what it is you need to tell us type of thing. But not to the point where it drove me crazy. And I feel like it was because I had recently finished the Count of Monte Cristo that I tolerated Van Helsing a little bit more than I might have otherwise. But overall, I'm very happy that I was able to finally read Dracula, and I enjoyed the book. 4.25. Then next on my list, I read another classic, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And this one I rated also a 4.25. I really enjoyed Jane Eyre. It was a good book. This is another one I was familiar with a lot of the storyline until something that happens. And then afterwards, I was kind of like up in the air about it, and I didn't know like which way things were going to go or anything like that. And that's when it got a little more like, oh, what's going to happen? A little more entertaining because I was less familiar with the story. But it didn't give me that 5-star feeling at all. I enjoyed the character development of Jane, but for a while there, I was getting a little nervous because I thought she was going to let people roll all over her, and I was not going to be happy about it. She did end up getting a bit of a backbone, though, and things turned out the way I hoped that they would, but I was nervous for a minute there. So I do recommend Jane Eyre. It is a fun, light gothic type of story for sure. So I do recommend that one. Then next on my list was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And this one I rated a 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this storyline of these two people. One of the girl, I don't remember the characters' names even now. I think the main male character was Justin, but I don't remember the female main character's name. And I could be wrong about Justin. But the female main character, she's a traveling nurse. She's had a lot of trauma from her childhood, and she ends up in this place where she and the main male character decides that they kind of want to date, but it's not normal dating, something like that. I don't even remember all that much, honestly. So obviously it wasn't a 5-star because I can't even remember, even though I rated it 4.5. But I really enjoyed Abby Jimenez's writing. It's a romance, but there's a lot of depth to the character. There's a lot more than just it being a fluffy romance, because it wasn't. There was, as I said, trauma that these characters had to unpack and heal from, and I appreciated that. It might have reached 5-star feeling for me if not for there was quite a bit of profanity, which takes me out of a story if there's so much like super heavy profanity, and this one unfortunately did. So I'm happy to have read an Abby Jimenez book, but I don't plan on reading any more of her books. Just because of those aspects. There's other books that have that I know I'll enjoy more. So that was that book. Then the next one on the list, I rated a 4.5 stars, and that was The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And this one was part of the first book in her spin-off series from the Inheritance games. So this is still following Avery and the Hawthorne brothers, but they're more of the background type of characters, and there is a new cast of characters. Well, some of them are still kind of in the foreground, but for the most part, they're in the background. And it's following new games, and lots of mystery and fun, like the original trilogy. I have to say, even though I did really enjoy The Grandest Game, if I'm comparing it to the original trilogy, I enjoy the original trilogy more, but I really do want to continue in the Grandest Game series, and I put the second book on my 25 in 2026 book TBR. So after that, I read a middle grade. This is Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rendell. This is the first book in a series. I can't remember. I think it's just called Impossible Creatures series. I'm not absolutely positive though. But this one I also rated 4.5 stars. Really, really enjoyed this book a lot. And I'm looking forward to continuing with the next book, which is called The Poison King, I think it was. That one is on my yearly TBR too. So I'm sure it will be a good time as well. After that, I finally read a Kristen Hanna book. I read The Nightingale, and I knew it was going to rip my heart out, and it did. It ripped my heart out. I rated it a 4.75, and I thought the story was well written. The characters were well developed. The subject matter was very hard, about World War II and two sisters that live in France and their experience during the war. It was just really hard. It was a hard book to read, but I felt for the subject matter, she did a really good job of portraying all that stuff that happened in France and with those people, the French people during that time. It just didn't it didn't reach 5-star feels for me, mainly because I know I will never read it again. Reading it once was enough for me, but I do highly recommend the book if you're looking for a good historical fiction. Just be prepared to have your heart ripped out in the process of reading it. So that is The Nightingale. Then next on the list, we're moving into my full-on 5-star books. The first one I have is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. This is the third and final book in her Emily Wilde series, and it was 5-star. I loved it so much. It is a cozier fantasy, but there are stakes in in it, especially in this book. The series as a whole is not as, it's not like an epic fantasy, which is why I say it's more of a cozy fantasy, but I do highly recommend it. It's about a professor named Emily Wilde. This is also like late 1800s, early 1900s time period in our world, except in a fantasy version of our world where fairies are real. And she's a professor from Cambridge or Oxford, one of those. And she, in the first book, is trying to write this encyclopedia to be published. So she needs to go to this island, like near Norway, that has been rumored to have these fairies, but no one knows if they're real or not. So she goes to this place during winter, pretty much right before winter, and goes to figure out, and so she can complete her encyclopedia. Well, then her rival professor ends up showing up as well there, and she's not happy about it at all. It's just wonderful, and this was a great conclusion. I loved it so much. So for sure, 5 stars. So happy. Then after that, 2 more books, you guys, is The Little Prince by Antoine de, I can't say his last name, but you'll see it in the picture right here. He's a French author, classic children's novel, 5 stars for me, adored it. It's about love and loss and, you know, all those good things. I loved it so much. So, and then last but not least, on my 25 books that I finished is Mistborn, the first book, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And yes, it was 5 stars. This is another one that tore my heart out and had me crying, but I still had this 5-star feelings. And if a book makes me cry, that doesn't mean it's not going to be 5 stars. A lot of times it will mean that it's 5 stars for me. So I love this series so much, and I am going to read Hero of Ages, which is the final book in the first era of Mistborn. So this is a fantasy, epic fantasy about this world where if people ingest metals that are born with this ability to use the magic, certain metals give them certain abilities. And if you're Mistborn, that means you can use all the metals to do the different abilities that are available depending on the metal. So, and it's about like found family, a heist type story, an overthrow the evil government story. And it's just wonderful, and I can't wait. I'm nervous, but I can't wait at the same time to finish with Hero of Ages. So that was Mistborn, The Final Empire. So that's it, you guys. I did pretty well. So of the 25, and I am counting DNFs because they are ones that I did attempt. So of that, I only didn't complete 4 books from the list. And so that means, how many is that? 20, no, 19. So no, 21. I can do math, I promise. So 21 out of the 25 books. And yeah, I'm very happy. Although I probably should say 20 because I am moving the house switch over. So technically I could say I didn't complete it because I am going to unsofty enough it during this year. So we'll say 20 out of the 25 books from my yearly TBR, I did finish in one way or the other. So I'm proud of myself. I'll give myself a pat on the back. Not too shabby, I have to say. So let me know down in the comments if you do a yearly TBR, and have you read any of these books that were on my list and what you thought of them. I know, like I said, there were some that were unpopular opinions, I know, for my thoughts on the books, but that's okay. Reading is subjective, and we can't all like the same books. So if there are books that you loved that I said I didn't really like all that much, totally okay. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. Please like and subscribe if you'd like more book and home fragrance content from me. And until next time, I appreciate you all. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.